Graphic recording is the act of translating dialogue, presentations, content that's delivered live into a visual format. Some people might think of it as large-scale note-taking in live events, otherwise known as scribing or sketchnoting in large format, generally done with 4x8 sheets of paper stuck up onto the wall with markers, sometimes with whiteboards. It's like infographics done live. If you've ever seen statistics and ideas put together in a concise format, graphic recording really does that, but in a live setting. The people who might be interested in graphic recording for a business or a professional purpose are those who are organizing conferences, leadership events, presentations, meetings of people coming together in one place to listen to or participate in learning environments. And event planners, anybody who's a keynote speaker might want a graphic recorder to help bring their presentation to life, though it's not meant to be a competitive practice.
Right. So like I'm trying to give a speech here.
Yeah.
And everybody's just looking at this lady drawing stuff.
Right.
Nobody's paying attention to me.
Well, I've found that the best presentations are generally those that are interactive. One way to interact with a facilitator or in a presentation setting is to actively provide content that's being mapped on a graphic recorded sheet of paper. A presenter might have 5 dozen amazing slides to present and to talk through and to sometimes, in some worst case scenarios, read through every bullet.
Guilty.
But there is also some really great discussion that could happen in the room, or questions that are generated as a result of a presentation that would never show up in a presentation deck. So if you've ever heard the phrase, these slides will be emailed to you after the event, and you stop taking notes, it's not a good thing, right? You want to
that's a learning killer.
Exactly, because then you turn your brain off and you stop interacting with the content. If you see it going up on the wall in the real-time format and you're contributing to it, it's a much more memorable experience than if you're a passive observer.
Mm-hmm. So let's say I'm a keynote speaker by trade, and I've been invited to kind of a TEDx conference. There's going to be about 5 or 6 keynote speakers there. How would a graphic recording professional help me stand out from the other presenters?
The graphic recording professional in an ideal situation would be getting your content outline ahead of time. So they would kind of know where you're going with your flow and your ideas, so to map out everything in a visual standpoint. Sometimes there's metaphors they can come up with. Say they're talking about the benefits of recruiting from a certain area of the world or demographic, and your graphic recorder is putting up a metaphor about fishing. Mm-hmm. Where's the best fishing spot for this particular person? That imagery, you wouldn't have necessarily heard it from the mouth of your presenter, but if you're associating fishing with recruiting, suddenly the two ideas come together and you're visually associating that fishing line with recruiting.
Right. So you can make these memorable metaphors while the person is speaking. Mm-hmm. You can capture, if there's any interactive component, you could capture what the speaker's saying as well as the questions that people are asking. And then what's the takeaway? Like, what's the change in behavior or impact on the audience of my talk versus the same audience listening to somebody else? Like, what do they walk away with that's different? The
learning retention of a graphic recorded session is much higher than the learning retention rate of someone who's listened to a piece of content or been part of the training. So when you've seen a recording happen in real life and real time, it's much more resonant and memorable for you as a participant than someone who has just listened to content. And when you're part of that, even better, like when you've interacted and actually added to the image with your feedback and discussion, that's never going to show up in a presentation deck, but it will show up in a graphic recording that can be reproduced and sent around, and all of the ideas of a given presentation are captured in one image. That saves you time, saves you a lot of headache of reviewing content and trying to get the gist of what happened.
So it accelerates learning in the moment, in the conversation. What about a month later?
Yeah, well, graphic recording and anything in the visual sphere generally will stick with you longer, right? The statistics out there about visual learning are pretty powerful because 65% of us are visual learners. And if 65% of us are learning by seeing imagery, that means you're much more likely to retain information that's presented in a visual format by graphic recording than you are with information that's presented in a text format or an auditory format.
So for a professor or a corporate trainer or even a CEO at a stockholders meeting, this is about inclusiveness. Because the traditional ways of pitching this information works great for less than 45% of the people out there.
Right.
And now you're opening up your circle of understanding and opening up the people who can buy into this message and support you.
Right. And I can't tell you how many presentations I've been in from corporate leaders. Well, they will outline their vision for the future, show a PowerPoint or two with a bullet point or an image that they associate with it. And usually it's stock photography and it's very pretty and very clean.
Like two dudes in suits shaking hands.
And very dry and bland and definitely something that I'm consuming passively. On the flip side, with graphic recording, I find that I feel much more like an active participant when I'm watching a graphic recording occur and listening to a presenter. Like if my corporate leader had come to me and said, I'm going to have this presentation graphically recorded and I'm going to present my vision of the company's future, and I have somebody drawing it off to the side, I am really excited to see what that shows long term, because he'll get to a 25 slide deck, the end of it, and I won't remember what happened in slide 5. But if I look at that image, all of that information is captured in one go.
Yeah. Am I going to remember a presentation that has a stock photo of people in a meeting that I've seen in a dozen different presentations? Or am I going to remember a presentation where the graphic component was created live in front of me for me?
Yeah.
Like that, it makes people feel so special that like this is a piece of art that's being created in the moment for me, for this purpose. And it's not just something that somebody scraped off of Google Image Search.
Right. It's not a Shutterstock standard.
Yeah, we're going to get sued by all those companies. But anyway, so why do you do this? I mean, this is neat, but why are you so excited about it?
This particular service offering graphic recording, I saw the first time I saw it, I was the one who had created the learning event. So I was the conference organizer, and I had a colleague of mine I invited, because I knew she had some skills, I just didn't know what graphic recording was, so I invited her to do graphic recording for my event. And she showed up with paper and markers, and I had given her the outline of what we were going to do and everything ahead of time. And she recorded what we talked about in that room. We had a diverse team of people in the same space who had never met each other in person. And not only was that powerful to be in the same room as those individuals, the whole team in one place, but hearing everybody's ideas and voices in the same place, in the same time and space, and having them captured up on the wall was really, really powerful. After that event, she had condensed these images down to emailable PDF formats, and I printed them out in my office in LA, and this had all happened in Colorado, and I put them up on my wall in my office, and people who would visit my office would say, wow, what was that? And I said, well, that's an event we had here. This is something that really put us on the track of being a cohesive team. And the outcome of that, I mean, not only to the content that was provided and the discussion that happened, but the check-in that I had almost daily. I would look at my wall, and it kept me on track, keeping my deliverables, my commitments top of mind with that visual image. And it also helped me keep my team on track to say, oh, do you remember what we talked about with that little pyramid in the corner? That's what we need to focus on here. What are our key messages? Now the little key image is down in the left-hand corner over here. Remember what we talked about here? That's really what we need to focus on for this project. And it became a living, breathing memory.
How did you refer to that earlier? Accelerating alignment?
Yeah, so using her graphic recording skills, we really accelerated our team's alignment to each other and to our overall shared goals. Because we could see them on the wall, we knew what we were all part of and where we all fit in that piece and where we could add value to the overall goal was incredibly powerful.
Right. So instead of every member of the team walking away from the learning with a different picture in their head, conceivably, they're all walking away with the same picture.
Exactly. As a result of our strategic planning meeting that was graphically recorded, we all had the same placemat image that captured what we talked about, what we committed to, and what our shared goals were. It was a very powerful experience. And from that point, I recalled that several years later, and I thought, I could do that. That is a really amazing skill set to have, and also it provided such great results for our team. Why can't I do that somewhere else with other people who also have yet to experience that alignment and that, engagement and creative innovation in one place?
That's awesome.